Hi there. Welcome back. Well, I didn't realize that yesterday I actually read a lot more. I think I read 5 chapters. I think I was only supposed to read four, but I got too into the story. But other than that, let's just get going with this reading. We'll go until who knows? I guess whenever. Ah, I don't know. I literally just got home like literally 5 minutes ago, and I'm like, I might as well start reading because if I don't read now, I'm gonna be way too lazy to read in the next hour or two. So I'll get this started. Exodus 21. These are the relations you must present to Israel. The regulates regulations. I, why am I struggling to speak? I literally just read a freaking. I just read an entire article right now, and it had far bigger words than these. Why am I struggling even to read this? Sorry. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the seventh year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. If he was single when he became your slave, he shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then then his wife must be freed with him. If his mas if his master gave him a wife while he was a slave and had sons or daughters, the only the then only the man will be free on the seventh year, but his wife and children shall still belong to his master. But the slave may declare, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I don't want to go free. If he does this, the master must present him before God. Then the master must take him to the doctor or doorpost and publicly pierce his ear with an awl. After that, the slave will serve his master for life. When when a man sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be free at the end of 6 years as the men are. The men are. If she does, she does not satisfy her owner. He must allow her. He must allow her to be bought back again, but he is not allowed to sell her to foreigners since he is the one who broke the contract with her. But if the slave's owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave but as a daughter. If a man who has married a slave wife takes another wife for himself, he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual imi- imi- I really can't speak right now. Sorry for that. If he fails in any of these three obligations, she may leave as a free woman without making any payment. Anyone who assaults or kills another person must be put to death. But if it if it's simply an accident permitted by God, I will appoint a place of refuge where the slaughter can run for safety. However, if someone deliberately kills another person, then the slaughterer must be dragged even from my altar and be put to death. Anyone who strikes father or mother must be put to death. Kidnappers must be put to death wherever they are caught in possession of their victims or have already sold them as slaves. Anyone who dishonors father or mother must be put to death. Now, suppose two men quarrel and one hits the other with a stone or fist, and the injured person does not die but is confined to bed. If he is later able to walk outside again, even with a crutch, the assailant will not be punished but must be compensated. compensate his victim for lost wages and provide for his full recovery. If a man beats his male or female slave with a club and the slave dies as a result, the owner must be punished. But if the slave recovers within a day or two, then the owner shall not be punished, since the slave is his property. Now, since two men are fighting, and in the process, they accidentally strike a pregnant woman, so she gives birth prematurely. If no further injury results, the man who struck the woman must pay the amount of compensation to the woman's husband. Woman's husband demands, and the judge approves or approve. But if there are further injury, the punishment must match the injury: a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. If a man hits a male or female slave in the eye, and the eye is blinded, he must let the slave go free to compensate for the eye. And if a man knocks out a tooth of a male or female slave, he must let the slave go free to compensate for the tooth. If an ox gores a man or woman to death, the ox must be stoned, and its flesh may not be eaten. In such in such a case, however, the owner will not be held liable. But suppose the ox had a representation for goring. The owner had been informed but failed to keep it under control. If the ox then kills someone, it must be stoned, and the owner must be also put to death. However, the dead person's relatives may accept payment to compensate for the lost life. The loss of life. The owner of the ox may redeem his life by paying whatever is demanded. The same regulation applies if the ox gores a boy or a girl. But if the fox gores a slave, either male or female, the animal's owner must pay the slave's owner 30 silver coins, and the ox must be stoned. Suppose someone digs and uncovers a pit and fails to cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it. The owner of the pit must pay full compensation to the owner of the animal, but then he gets to keep the dead animal. If someone's ox injures a neighbor ox, and injured injured ox dies, then the two owners must sell the live ox and divide the price equally between them. They must they must also divide the dead animal. But if the ox had a represent representation for goring, yet its owner failed to keep it under control, he must pay the full compensation: a live ox the dead ox for the dead one, but he may keep the dead ox. I did not realize that there were so many of these that God actually told Moses about. This is insane, to be honest. If someone steals an ox or sheep and kills or sells it, the thief must pay back 5 oxen for each ox stolen, and 4 sheep for each sheep stolen. If the thief is caught in an act of breaking into a house and is struck and killed in the process, the person who killed the thief is not guilty of murder. But if it happens in the daylight and one who killed the thief is guilty of murder, a thief who is caught must pay in full price for everything he has stolen. If he cannot pay, he must He must be sold as a slave to pay for his thief. If someone steals an ox or a donkey or a sheep, and it is found in the thief's possession, then the thief must pay double the value of the stolen animal. If an animal grazing in the field or vineyard, and the owner lets it stray into someone else's field to graze, then the animal's owner must pay compensation from the best of his own grain and grapes. If you are burning thorn bushes and the fire gets out of control and spreads into another person's field, destroying the sheaves or the uncut grain or the whole crop, the one who started the fire must pay for the lost crop. Suppose someone leaves money or goods with a neighbor for safekeeping, and they are stolen from the neighbor's house. If the thief is caught, the compensation is double the value of what was stolen. But if the thief is not caught, and the neighbor must appear before God, who will determine if he has stolen the property. Suppose there are disputes between two with both claim to own a particular ox, donkey, sheep, article of clothing, or any lost property. Both parties must come to before God, and the person whom God declares guilty must pay double compensation to the other. Now, suppose someone leaves a donkey, ox, sheep, or any other animal with a neighbor for safekeeping, but it dies or is injured or taken away, or no one sees what happened. The neighbor must take an oath and preserve to the Lord. If the Lord confirms that the neighbor did not steal the property, the owner must accept the verdict, and no payment will be required. But if the animal was indeed stolen, the guilty person must pay compensation to the owner. If it was torn to pieces by a wild animal, the remains of the carcass must be shown as evidence, and no compensation will be required. If someone borrows an animal from a neighbor, and it is injured or dies when the owner is absent, the person who borrowed it must pay full compensation. But if the owner was present, no compensation is required, and no compensation is required if the animal was rented for the loss or cover by a rental fee. If a man seduces a virgin who is not engaged in anyone or had sex with her, he must pay the customary bride price and marry her. If her, but if her father refuses to let him marry her, the man must still pay him the equal amount to a bride price of a virgin. You must not allow a sorceress to live. Huh? I think I read that right. I think I read that wrong. Anyone who had sexual relations with an animal must be certainly put to death. Yikes. Anyone who sacrifices to any god other than the Lord must be destroyed. You must not mistreat or oppress foreigners in any way. Remember, you yourselves were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. You must not exploit a widow or an orphan. If you exploit them in any way, they cry out to me, then I will certainly hear their cry. My anger will blaze against you, and I will kill you with the sword. Then your wives will be widows and your children fatherless. If you lend money to any of my people who are in need, do not charge interest as a money lender would. If you take your neighbor's cloak as security for a loan, you must return it before sunset. This coat may be the only blanket your neighbor has. How can a person sleep without it? If you do not return it and your neighbor cries out to me for help, then I will hear them, for I am merciful. You must not dishonor God or curse any of your rulers. You may not hold any back. You may not hold anyone back when they are give me offerings from your crops or wine. You must give me your firstborn sons. You mu- uh you must also give me the firstborn of your cattle, sheep, and goats. But leave the newborn animal and its mother for 7 days, and give it to me on the eighth. You must be my holy person. Therefore, do not eat any animal that has been torn up or killed by wild animals. Throw it to the dogs. I did not realize how many rules God gave to people in the Old Testament. Man, I did not realize that's how much there was. You must not pass along false rumors. You must not cooperate with evil people by lying on the witness stand. You must not follow the crowd in doing wrong. When you are called to testify in dispute, do not be swayed by the crowd to twist justice. Excuse me. And do not slant your testimony in favor of a person just because that person is poor. If you if you come upon your enemy's ox or donkey that has strayed away, take it back to its owner. If you see that the donkey of someone who hates you has collapsed under its load, do not walk do not walk by. Instead, stop and help. In a lawsuit, you must not deny justice to the poor. Be sure to never charge anyone falsely with evil. Never sentence an innocent or a blameless person to death, for I never declare a guilty person to be innocent. Take no bribes, for a bribe makes you ignore something that you clearly see. A bribe makes even the righteous person twist the truth. You must not oppress foreigners. You must know what it's like to be a foreigner, for you yourselves were foreigners in the land of Egypt. Plant and harvest your crops for 6 years, but let the land renew and lie covenantly during the seventh year. Then let the poor among you harvest whatever grows onto its own. Leave the rest for the wild animals to eat. The same applies for your vineyards and olive groves. You have 6 days of each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day you must stop working. This gives your ox, your donkeys a chance to rest. It allows your slaves and foreigners to living among you to be refreshed. Pay close attention to my instructions. You must not call on the name of any other god. Do not even speak their names. Each year you must celebrate 3 festivals in my honor. First, celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. For 7 days, the bread you must eat, you must be made. You eat must be made without yeast. Just as I commanded you, celebrate this festival annually at the point at the appointed time in early spring, in the month of Abib, for that is the anniversary of your departure from Egypt. No one may appear before me without an offering. Second, celebrate the festival of harvest. When you bring me your first crops you harvest, finally celebrate the festival of the final harvest at the end of the harvest season. When you have harvested all the crops from your field, at least 3 times each year, every man in Israel must appear before the sovereign, the Lord. You must not offer the blood of my sacrificial offerings, together with any baked goods containing yeast, and do not leave any fat. Do not leave any fat from the festival offerings till the next morning. As you harvest your crops, bring your very best of the first harvest to the house of the Lord your God. You must not cook a young goat in its own mother milk. See, I am sending an angel before you to protect you on your journey, to lead you to safety to the place I have prepared for you. Pay close attention to him and obey his instructions. Do not rebel against him, for he is my representative, and he will not forgive your rebellion. But if you are careful to obey him and following my instructions, then I will be an enemy of your enemies, and I will be opposed to who you will oppose. For my angel will go before you and bring you into the land of Armithites, Armithites, Armin, Armenians, Hittites, Parthites, Canaanites, Hivites, and Jebusites, so you can live there, and I will destroy them completely. You must not worship the gods of these nations or serve them in any way or or in, intimidate their evil practices, imitate their evil practices. Instead, you must utterly destroy them and smash their sacred pillars. You must serve only the Lord your God. If you do, I will bless you with food and water and will protect you from illness. There will be no miscarriages or infertility in your land. I will give you long, full lives. I will send my terror ahead of you and create panic among all the people whose lands you invade. I will make all your enemies turn and run. I will send terror ahead to drive out the Hivites, Canaanites, Hittites, and I will drive them out in a single year, because the land who became desolate and wild animals would multiply to threaten. I will drive them out a little at a time until the population has increased enough to take possession of the land, and I will fix your boundaries from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea, and from the eastern wilderness to the Euphrates River. I I will hand over to you the people now living in the land, and you will drive them out ahead of you. Make no treaties with them or their gods. They must not they must not live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me. If you serve their gods, you will be caught in the trap of idolatry. Oh man. I did not realize that's how many I did not realize that's how many laws God put on the people of Israel. I really did not know. I heard about some of these laws, but I did not realize it was this much and how specific he actually came to being, even when it came to like disputes. Oh man. I'm just imagining living in that time and just hearing all this, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to write it down somewhere because I'm gonna forget what the second one even was. And again, a lot of people like to say that slavery is supported in the Bible, but the thing is that even in the Bible, after the 6 years are up, on the seventh, they're free. They can do whatever they want to. They don't need to pay nothing back, nothing at all. They are gone. But if they want to be in their little group, then there you go. But I really don't see really nothing wrong with most of these laws. I mean, there are some things that you probably could say is a little bad, but the thing is that that's kind of this is the Old Testament laws. Even Jesus, basically, when he came back, he basically said that, oh, some of the laws from the Old Testament, you don't need to follow them anymore. You don't need to follow these anymore. I'm pretty much getting rid of most of these old laws because these are, because I think later on it'll talk about tattoos in, no, I think that's Leviticus. Yeah, Leviticus, it talks about tattoos, but it talks about markings on your skin and not actual like tattoos with ink that we have nowadays. Yeah. Yeah, because back then tattoos were kind of marks like to celebrate a pagan god. Basically, like, oh, I want Zeus to like come and help me, and they'll basically mark their skin in the sign of Zeus, and they'll basically cut themselves open, and then they'll put something hot and kind of like burn their skin open to kind of commemorate these gods. But most of these rules are just like just sort of disputes, just sort of have you know, like you have disputes with other people. And it seems like God wants them to be a sort of family among these people, but He doesn't want them to be families against others like the Canaanites. Canaanites, yeah, He doesn't want them to be in it because from I remember from one of the previous generations of Jacob, I believe Edom, I think that was his name. He married a Canaanite woman, and a whole lot of problems happened. And that's kind of one of the things that the Lord said. So it might seem messed up that some of these laws are like really weird or something that they do not agree with entirely, or what they're saying about the poor people and the evil people in this. The thing is that the Lord had a plan for every single one of these. And again, Jesus came back later on in the New Testament and said, yeah, some of these old laws, you don't really need to follow them anymore. Like, you don't need to do these laws anymore. These are old laws. The only laws that you need to actually follow now is the Ten Commandments and what I teach you. And that's something that I'm actually going to be, sooner or later, we're going to end up reading the Gospels. Hopefully by next year, depending how much I read. But other than that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Because this is actually, even though it was just reading about the laws, it still kind of shows a little sort of character of God. He doesn't seem to be the quote unquote evil God that people still claiming exists in the Bible. He does not. He basically is just a kind of like a judge right now. Just like, okay, you have disputes, come to me, yada, 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 yada. Okay, what happened to your cattle? Oh, okay, 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 okay. He seems to be more of a judge and kind of just appointing himself just the laws for the people to follow. But again, other than that, doesn't really seem that bad here. It's pretty plenty. I can't speak right now. It's pretty much self-explanatory what's going on in this in the three chapters I just read. Yeah, it just seems like the quote-unquote caring father that he is, caring judge, caring father. He's also merciful. I mean, there's God's character, merciful, a judge, yeah, and a fair one at that. And he's willing to give everyone a chance except for the people outside of it, but he had reasons to do so because he wants to preserve the lineage of Jesus because that was his plan the whole time leading into the Gospels or the New Testament. Other than that, I will leave it off here just to let you guys get back onto what you're doing. And I'll see you tomorrow.